that one small game studio managed to make 3 promising games and let each one down while failing to learn from their mistakes. Starting with a game that remains today as one of the reasons why so many people still stay cautious with early access titles. That was so bad it was actually removed from Steam, to then a fun and memorable experience that left many with cherished memories. Only
like Reign of Kings was fucking good. It went so hard. If it wasn't a dead game, I would 100% recommend you guys to try Reign of Kings. You won't get the same experience because there's not players on the servers anymore, but god damn, it went so fucking hard. It was so amazing.
to be later abandoned in favor for another game that is similar in many ways, but due to technical requirements, barely accessible to most players. That was then also eventually abandoned. And now a grand finale, which could signal the end or a new beginning for this company. This is...
Wait, Twitch, what are you doing? I wanted to go into, isn't it just called just talking? Just chatting? Oh my god, fuck me. Just chatting, okay. That's where we are now. Okay.
What went wrong with Codehatch, a developer that we've covered before in the Starforge video, which has repeatedly dropped the ball and left a name for themselves by many as a company not to be trusted. I'm Wicked Wiz, I'm back, and yes, I'm finally being a man of my word, standing, in fact, melting on your CPU. This is a big one. We're not just going to be looking at one game, in fact 4 in total, and 5 if you include this. Codehatch have been making games for nearly over a decade, and their history in development isn't as black and white as some may assume. It's most definitely one of the most intriguing stories I've covered in a long time. Before we start, I'd like to say a massive thanks to all my supporters over on Patreon. You guys are honestly helping to keep me on my feet, and there's more on how you can support later. But now, let's begin. As many of you may already know from my previous video on Starforge, Codehatch was formed by these 2 aspiring game developers.
Starforge sounded familiar to me, and now I remember why. It's the penis logo, guys. I remember. Oh. I never really understood how people could see this as a penis, to be honest. Like, to me, it is quite obviously a hammer. Or something else. Like, I don't know, a spaceship or some shit. But how do people see this as a penis? Like, dick, not a dick. Oh well.
Starting all the way back in February of 2012. But the co-founder, Will Swarren, had another company set up before this called Exalt Studios, founded all the way back in 2004. The team was consisted of just him and him only, working on a game called Silas. The best way I could describe it is that it's a Mario Kart-inspired racing game, but with guns and meat grinders.
What the fuck?
And also this guy, who's both a playable character in Silas and also an armor choice later on in Starforge. Now, of course, there's nothing terrible about this. In fact, it's quite humbled to see anyone try and build their own game. No matter how cursed this one seems, it was just a fun indie project that you can buy for about $10. And even to this day, you can play it for free on their website. From my own experience playing Silas, it wasn't well built and suffered.
We can investigate. So let's get a big one. So I can definitely see how it could be interpreted as a penis if this is like, if you take the guy and it basically laid flat and then you cut off, or you see it from below the legs. So it's like a camera looking up at a man, and then he has a very, very pronounced schlong, and then this is where the used food comes out. So if you see it like that, okay, that makes sense, right? but then it wouldn't matter. The logo, yeah. I don't know how much I want to draw.
From quite a few bugs, so it wasn't anything groundbreaking. Yet I can't help but think that this was the beginning of what I like to call the Codehatch quality standard. And for developers with 10 years experience developing games their entire lives, equally in fact, you would think that these guys would be ready to make an absolute banger of a game.
No. This is something people have gotten so wrong. Doing something for a long time doesn't equal quality. Like, those are two completely separate factors. A lot of the times you need time to learn quality, like to learn skill and to get good. But just because you're spending a lot of time doing something doesn't automatically say you get better at something. Like, I don't know if you guys have any friends who's like Wood League in League of Legends or something like that with thousands of hours played, and they just never learn, they never get better. It is so easy to disprove that time equals skills. Practice and active learning equals skills, and you need time for that. But time doesn't equal practice and active learning. Those are two completely different things. Like, when I was going too hardcore in Counter-Strike and such, you would always do some aim maps and so on to actually improve your aim. And that's how you get good aim, but you don't get good map awareness with that. And practicing maps doesn't give you good aim. So you needed to practice it separately to get both qualities. And that is active learning, and that's practice. And that costs time, but time wouldn't have given me that. Like, time could have given me up to some level, but you need active learning to break through it and actually go up there. So just because someone has spent a lot of time doing something does not mean they're good at it. Keep that in mind.
Now, the story with Codehatch starts with the game called Starforge. As previously mentioned, I've already covered the game and the drama surrounding it. But for those of you who haven't seen it, or for context
It looked
sake,
like a
let's take
Halo
a trip down memory
discounted
lane.
version.
With pre-alpha
Looks
gameplay
fun.
ready to go and a trailer out there for people to see, Starforge was quickly spoken about on Reddit. And in October of 2012, it came out on Indiegogo as a crowdfunding campaign. This was around the time where Minecraft-like survival games were the new craze. People wanted a sci-fi game with crafting, survival, and combat that was also multiplayer. Now, it's important to mention that on the Indiegogo page, they promised a lot. And this is a common theme that we'll see throughout the story. So with all the promise of the next Minecraft, but in space, more than enough people backed this project, including myself, but
How much was raised? Because I think all the backers here have unrealistic expectations of what it costs to develop a game. Let's see. Like, this game, easily $5 to $10 million. Easily. I'm sure that wasn't the goal they were racing for.
that was later on in early access, whipping out mum's credit card, ready to get screwed over. At the end of this campaign, they not only achieved their goal of 75k, but instead made roughly 130.
Okay, so this is a difficult thing to talk about because, like, normal people shouldn't really be aware how much a product costs. Right? If someone asks you to back the ice cream store and they need $50,000, how the fuck are you gonna know if $50,000 is enough or not, unless you've opened ice cream stores and you have experience working with ice cream stores and finances and so on? You simply don't know, so you trust the goal. Games are fucking expensive, and if you think a game costs this much, you can probably easily multiply by 10, and then you get a closer to real number. So there's no fucking way they would do this for 75,000. Like, let's put this into perspective. 75,000, what is that? That's a very low yearly salary in the US for two people. So 2 people can work full time on this for a year and then their finances will be gone. That's unrealistic. That's not gonna happen. So if you fail something that already has if you fund something that already has an unrealistic deadline and timeline and budget, of course it's not gonna work. You are funding people who has no idea what they're doing. And they don't have a realistic grasp of what it takes to get it from here to where it needs to go. That's not really your fault as a bagger, but the more informed you are, the less you can waste your money. And that is the thing with a lot of these Kickstarters. And then there's the other thing of Kickstarters, that the faster you raise your goal, the faster you can go out and do publicity like, oh, we raised all our money in 24 hours, look how great we are, everybody loves us. And then more people will go and fund you, and you will get even more money than the goal. So there's also the marketing aspect of it. But it should always be a somewhat realistic goal, because if you cannot deliver a product within the raised goal, plus whatever investment you might have, then it's pointless. And they would have needed to have at least $900,000, I would say, at least, to start delivering something valuable for this game with all those goals. So, yeah, they're way the fuck off.
35. And development was already on the way. All those who made a pledge were granted and...
Wait, I'm a little curious here. So they only have 497 baggers. So what is the average? Only $27? That's not bad at all. I thought it would be higher.
35. And development was already on the way. All those who made a pledge were granted alpha access, and it was an exciting time for everyone there. A bit later in November, they promised multiple things for January in 2013, like multiplayer, procedural weapons, physics movement overhauls, optimization, resources.
What the fuck is procedural weapons? Like, what does that mean?
And better AI. 2013 came around, and in January there was no sign of this promised update. But instead, in February, they switched focus to just the fort defense, with no mention of any of the other items on their list. Things then escalate as a month later in March, straight out of the blue, they just released the game on early access, with none of the promised updates including fort defense. This annoyed the community for multiple reasons. One, there wasn't an announcement for this, even though people knew that it was greenlit, and two, because it was nothing like people expected. It was clear from the delays and the lack of communication that something had to be done to improve this. So they hired a community manager that was meant to relay progress updates to the community. For this, they picked an active member from the forum called Juno, but with this came some problems. The issue was that communication between Juno and Codehatch remained barely functional. Due to a difference in location, meetings would be held on Skype, and Juno was also under strict NDA. But that wasn't really the problem, it was the lack of communication. In the space of 7 months, only 6 calls between Juno and the devs were made. And in those 6 calls, not too much information really came out about what was going on behind the scenes. Juno struggled with this and reminded Codehatch that this is a crowd-funded project and people deserve the right to know what's going on. Throughout her contract, she was...
What's the point of hiring someone and then not giving them the information they need to do their job? Then it's kind of pointless, isn't it? Like, then you're just wasting money.
Was told multiple times that it would be renewed.
Wait. She was fired via an email on December 31st, like New Year's Day, I guess, or New Year's Eve, 27 minutes before midnight. That is fucking wild, man. That's crazy.
Reassuringly so. But literally 27 minutes before her contract would end, she received an email in the dead of night, telling her that she's been let go. No phone call, prior warning, or anything like that. Because Juno was well known in the community, people quickly caught wind of this and started asking questions. And because of the community unrest, Codehatch reluctantly came out with a statement saying that they
Why is this
just
video
wanted somebody
so
in-house. When they did
so
get
laggy?
somebody in-house, communication
Is the
was
video
improved,
just that?
but not by much. The new community manager had to deal with similar issues and was also strictly under NDA, meaning that they can only speak about things that have been approved, which is fair enough. But again, if you don't let the community know what's really going on, then it shows that you have something to hide. In May of 2014, things got weird because update 057 came out and it seemed like a pretty big update, but in reality it wasn't really that. And
Players can now open and close doors. Great.
then only a month later in June they released 075, a major step with no other updates in between. This game was very close to release and it still didn't have everything they had promised. With concern rising, things behind the scenes started to degrade further because their recently hired in-house community manager just disappeared. Again, with no mention or explanation from Codehatch.
What the fuck? Can you spawn pigs? The fuck is going on?
This caused confusion and speculation within the community. So this user right here, Dan Velka, did some digging, and via the use of publicly available information, they found out that the community manager supposedly left or was let go. But it was most likely that they were let go due to the fact that they also swapped out their more senior dev team with junior developers. It was clear that with their limited funding, Codehatch was already running out of money.
I can't even believe they hired a community manager if that's all the money they had. That seems like a super fucking waste of money. Yeah.
Things of course get worse because shortly after Dan Velka's post, both them and Juno along with others were completely wiped from the forum. Their accounts were deleted, meaning that all of the news and update logs from Juno about Starforge were gone. If it wasn't already obvious, at this point things were spiraling out of control. The game was poorly optimized, missing a bunch of promised features. Even for an early access,
to be honest, this was done in 2012 to 2014. Game engines were not as good as they are today. It was a different beast making games back then. That does make it okay to take money from people and not delivering, but I'm just saying, keep in mind what Unreal Engine 5 can do today right out the box. It will look like a billion times better than this, and you have done basically nothing as a developer. It wasn't like that 10 years ago. Like back in the old times. Like things was just much worse.
this is unacceptable. And with Codehatch clearly running out of money, they made a rush to get the game released, adding things in that only went on to...
Which, to be fair, is also why all Unreal 5 engine games looks the fucking same. Like, you can... Most of the time you can look at games and you can see if it's done in Unreal 5 or not. They just have the same like flavor to them, the same visual style. And it's getting tiresome.
Skew the scope of the game while also adding additional bugs and issues. And in September of 2014, straight out of the blue, they finally did it. They released Starforge, making it one of the most unfinished disasters known to Steam at the time. Not only was it an unplayable mess, but it was so overwhelming to a point where you could actually hear the screams of people who supported this game. In fact, it was so bad that people set up a petition just to have Starforge removed from Steam. And although it wasn't successful, the game was eventually taken down in 2017. One of the reasons as to why the Starforge community was so...
This was so fucking good. Like, this brings back so many memories. I wish a proper developer would like kind of remake this or take the idea of Reign of Kings and then run with it and make a proper version.
mad wasn't just the neglect, the broken promises, the unfinished final product, and everything in between. It was the fact that Codehatch were working on another game that seemingly came out of nowhere, clearly using whatever funding was left over plus the money being made through Starforge sales during the time it was still on Steam.
Yeah.
This now brings us onto a sad story of a game that honestly brought a lot of joy to many people, but was unfortunately left in the wrong hands. This is what went wrong with Reign of Kings. The easiest way to explain this game is like Rust, or at least old Rust, but medieval. However, more cursed and not very well optimized. The concept is straightforward.
What do you mean more cursed? It was so good. You could make the worst characters. Like, and it mattered a lot how your character was, because you would have like relatively tight hitboxes. So if you're a small skinny character, you had a much smaller hitbox. If you're a big fat character, a big hitbox.
You log on, make a character, gather resources, build a base,
It was so
encounter
good.
the local wildlife, and have a pretty damn awesome time.
It was just so savage and so feral. Like, people, this game just brought the worst out in people. It was so fun.
For all of their faults, Codehatch does know how to make a fun game. I didn't give it much credit in the Starforge video, but I have fond memories of jumping onto a server, making new friends, enemies, and going to war. Maybe it was just how the game was made, but for some reason, Reign of Kings encouraged players to roleplay scenarios. In the earlier days, if you got raided, it was most likely because you had beef with another group. I remember wars being temporarily prevented after a duel between two champions. It also had prisoner mechanics, so you're not only just gonna die in this game, you could also get caught and locked up. And
it was so fucking funny. Like, essentially there were slave hunters on some servers that just ran around trying to kidnap other players, and we did this as well. It was fucking funny. Like, if you had another player and you got him and you just drag him around and did whatever you wanted with him and he just couldn't do anything, it was so fucking funny.
people from both sides of those situations absolutely loved it. It was hilarious, and I've had some of the funniest moments on this game, which makes me even more sad for what actually happened to it in the end. It's not clear as to when development actually started with Reign of Kings, hence the surprise to many, but the game came out on Steam in February of 2015 with a successful trailer that gained a lot of traction in a short period of time. The hype for the game was so successful that it started off with over 13k players in the first week. The alpha, as to be expected,
quite surprised it lost players that fast. Like, we were so hooked. We played this for a month or so and just like intensely played it, like skipping school to play it and like waking each other up during the night because we were being raided and so on. So fucking fun.
Had its fair share of issues. Poorly optimized, laggy, and a bunch of exploits plus glitches. However, this didn't really faze that many people. Everyone could see the potential and that was enough.
It had so much potential.
That's not entirely correct, because the Starforge community never forgets. When it came to the development early on with all the updates, you could actually hear the enthusiasm and passion Codehatch had for this game. It's been a week of full late nights, powered by energy drinks, pizza, and the excitement of seeing everybody play and share about their experiences in the game. We are absolutely amazed by the amount of support we've received, and we thank everyone for their help in posting bug reports and emailing us about exploits. All this hype and passion would be accelerated as this game became prime content for big names on YouTube and Twitch. Everything at this point was going so well. There were issues still, and the game was clearly built on a rocky foundation, but the large majority still just didn't care or would call it a feature, because
it had its own charm, right? Like, there was a lot of bugs and the graphics was kind of shitty and you looked weird and the movement was weird and so on, but it was responsive and the combat made sense. And the base building mechanics make sense. They work quite nicely and everything. Yeah, there was some. I remember there were some cheaters or hackers or whatever, but yeah, it is what it is.
All in all, it was a fun time. However, this wouldn't last. As each update came out with endless bug fixes, changes, and optimization efforts, there was one issue that became ever more present, and that is the issue with exploits and hackers. Now,
Yeah,
the
fair
hacker
enough.
issue has always been an ongoing battle, but as time went on, it only seemed to get worse, which would contribute to less players logging on as the issue persisted. For example, imagine spending hours building a base that was strong enough to survive a siege overnight, only to have it taken over effortlessly by hackers, leaving you to start all over again. All of
That is fucking annoying, right? But that looks fucking funny. Like just teleporting through the door with a halberd. Like, huh, huh, huh. Like, I don't know. Like, that was just part of the gameplay. And then you start a new base and you raid, like, you go to another server or you raid some assholes. Like,
this was clearly starting to get to Codehatch, as they were in a constant battle to tackle these issues. On the 23rd of March 2015, they released an update regarding combat exploits and hacks. And amongst addressing changes, they said this: "We are sorry that some of you have had bad experiences from people using hacks and exploiting in the game. We really care about everyone having a fair and enjoyable experience, and it really upsets us that this kind of behavior is happening, and we'll do our best to get some systems in place to help combat against this." So
like hackers is always like an ongoing arms race. Like you implement this security system, they implement this hack. Then you do this, they do that. You do this, they do that. Like it always escalates and it always goes to the next level. You can see like World of Warcraft, for example, they still have hackers and botters, right? And they have made a shit ton of money on that game. And it's exists for what? Like 20 years now? It's fucking insane, man. And they still have hackers, they still have botters. Like, it's just you can reduce it, but it's so hard, and I would say almost impossible to get it to zero. And as even though World of Warcraft is like a server authority setup, I don't know if that's the right term, but what I'm trying to say is it's the server that determines what is legal and what is not. So if the server doesn't agree with the action you're trying to do, it will cut you off and say, nope, that's not how we do it here. At least that's how it should be. Yeah.
they looked into some solutions such as Valve Anti-Cheat and the other option, Easy Anti-Cheat, to combat this issue. But a few days later, while trying to figure out what solution to take, they came out with some more whitelist commands and more admin controls to combat these hackers. However, with the game built the way it is on the Unity engine, it wasn't too hard for hackers to mess things up. And only a couple days later after that, almost in response to their updates, a massive DDoS campaign targeted their lobby server, meaning that players couldn't have access to any of the servers. In response to this, Codehatch released a guide for a workaround, but it didn't seem like much was in place to prevent this happening in the first place. Although on the 10th...
That sucks, of course. And it's kind of what happens when you're a victim of your own success. Like, this game probably got too much attention too fast, and the developers weren't ready and they didn't know what to do. So when they suddenly had this huge success where people started to be interested in hacking and DDoSing and so on, they had no idea how to combat it. And they apparently, it doesn't seem like they hired in any experts to help them out, which they should have done, especially when they had this kind of money. And even if they didn't do it, get some investment or something, take out a bank loan, get your foundation straight, and then earn the rest of the money.
10th of April 2015, they did eventually integrate Easy Anti-Cheat, along with adding a bunch of new furniture into the game, and for the time being, this did improve things, as it was less easy for hackers to exploit. Throughout the next few months,
Notice that, less easy, not impossible.
and with the struggle of upgrading to Unity 5, whilst dealing with many bug reports and the endless challenge of patching exploits, a rather strange update came out in August called ROK Looking Forward. The too long didn't read for this was that Codehatch were planning to release Reign of Kings sometime in December of 2015. Now, just as a reminder, the game came out on early access in late alpha of February. They mentioned that they were close to completing their internal roadmap and that once they've added things such as farming, fishing, spears, kicking, and a decal system, they were essentially done adding any new content. The beta phase was there for fixing bugs and exploits, but the message here was pretty damn clear. This game was going to stand still once it was released. And that was even more clear with the mention that
I don't think that's what the update says at all. Like, realistically, you cannot keep adding features and things to a game without releasing it. So, like, you have a vision, you have these goals for the release. When you have all of them done in some state, you call it feature complete. Might not be bug free or anything, but then you have a feature complete thing. And then you can fix it in the alpha and beta and so on. And then you can release the final version. And then you can make updates after the final release and expansions and so on. Saying that it's almost like it is feature complete and we just need to fix the bugs, then we will release. That doesn't mean there will not be any more updates. I think that's a very wrong take.
the updates will be fewer and far between. But in this post, they also had a Q&A, which looking back now is very interesting to see. Are you stopping development on Reign of Kings? No, definitely not. We still have much development to finish. We just wanted to let everyone know our future plans for Reign of Kings. Is it the end after full release comes out? Nope. While the game will be exiting early access, we will still be monitoring the game and fixing bugs, exploits.
Okay. It should have said further development and updates and so on, expanding the game, not just fixing bugs, exploits, and balancing.
And balancing. Now, in all fairness, and at this point, this wasn't technically the end of the game. But it's clear that they only plan on general support for the rest of its existence. There's no future roadmap or anything in sight, which...
Yeah, I will agree with that now. And that's a huge shame. What sometimes happens with, well, what happens a lot with developers, especially when they get as stressed out as they must have been releasing this and trying to fix everything and so many issues piling up, they were probably burned the fuck out. And it doesn't seem like they hired in people to keep the game going, which would have been the smart thing to do. But they probably didn't have the energy or the motivation any longer to keep developing Reign of Kings. Like, Reign of Kings had probably pummeled them to the ground and they had a hard time getting back up. So they just wanted to finish it and move on. And that is also what happens a lot. And people who feel like that, they should be developing like single player games or something where they finish it and then no more updates and everybody is happy. Whereas multiplayer games, there's an expectation of continuous development and support and so on.
Which is a good sign that the game will die pretty soon. If you take something with a similar concept like Rust, you'll know damn well that it lasted as long as it has because Face Punch keeps adding to it. They keep the game fresh and interesting because they know that if they just leave it to stagnate, then people will get bored and...
Completely agree. And they probably have a much, much bigger studio.
Move on to the next thing. From the time this was posted in August all the way to December, they seem to have added the content that was promised, but the game clearly still had a fair amount of work that needed to be done. Hacking was still a big problem, and this would only get worse after release. And on the 16th of December when the game was released, the overall reception was still pretty mixed. People weren't all too confident that they would actually continue to add anything to the game because they pretty much said they're not going to do that. But after this release and for the next couple of years, the game would only really see patches, none of which really solving any of the core issues. And with that, Reign of Kings quickly fell off. There were other game studios already trying to make their own take on Reign of Kings. And in desperation, the community would just...
Then where are those games? Where are the alternatives? I'm only seeing like Rust and like those shooting games. I'm not seeing any medieval versions.
Hoping, begging that Codehatch would sell on the rights to another developer, because it was clear they weren't really going to do much else with it. Even this small German game developer reached out directly to the community and made a petition to get the rights of Reign of Kings, so that they could continue work on it and keep it alive. Although I'm not really all too sure how that would work, but either way it wasn't really successful. But
It's easy to say this should sell the game, right? But how much is the game worth?
the game remains today as an abandoned wasteland of dead servers with a very small group of people who play every now and then. It's not entirely dead and you can still have some fun, but that's if you really want to survive on your own or just play with some friends.
I thought the ping was players. I thought this numbers was players, like, oh, 9 out of 350, that's a bit optimistic. And 35, oh, that's a lot of players. But it's apparently the ping. I don't know why it's like, why there's two numbers. And the player count is over here. 5, 4, 2, 1, 1, 1. So they're like, what, 14 people playing at this point?
Still have some fun, but that's if you really want to survive on your own or just play with some friends. The sad truth is that this game had potential, but it was just abandoned. Because on the 17th of July 2019, this was the last update, and there's not been anything else ever since. On a side note, and while researching for this video, I saw that on their Twitter they mentioned on the official Reign of Kings account that both Silas and Starforge are now free to download from their website, which I don't know why, it just made me laugh. It was like they were trolling everybody who was still mad about Starforge, and it was like a spit in the face to everybody who believed in the future of Reign of Kings. Go ahead and play these other two broken games whilst we do nothing with this one. But when it comes to Reign of Kings, it's just a shame that they gave up on this game. It's clear that it wasn't for financial issues, and I strongly believe that, as we'll soon see. It could have been due to multiple factors that we just didn't see behind the scenes.
I think they just lost the motivation. Like, there was too much, like, there was too much building up. There was too much they had to do. They didn't think about doing. They actually had to. Now they had to go from prototyping games and getting a beta out to finalizing them and doing all the boring systems such as anti-cheat, server integrity, and all of those things. That's not really why you're doing game development. It's not the fun things. It's not the flashy moving things. It is the foundation, it's the boring gray stuff that needs to be done for the colorful, flashy things to work. And I don't think they liked doing that, and they lost all their motivation when they had to do it. And for some reason they didn't. It seemed like they didn't hire in people to do it, but we will look that up later.
It could have been the constant struggle to stave off the hackers, endless bug fixes due to the game being built on poor foundations, or just because they genuinely thought they did enough for the game and it was time to move on. And to be honest, this probably was the case, because this now brings us onto their next survival game, Heat. This is...
I think it's just a group of passion-driven, motivation-driven developers who likes the next new idea and who doesn't like working on the same idea for too long. Like, working on the same idea for a long time probably kills their motivation and makes them bored. I think that's what it is.
The latest in their hardcore survival projects. The easiest way to describe it is that it's like Reign of Kings, but in the Wild West, with better but much heavier graphics and all the unoptimized mess that comes with it. It's a quite straightforward game.
What the
You
fuck?
survive the wilderness, build a house, gain power as either president, sheriff, or become a tribe leader as the
Ooh.
chief. But most importantly, you can start a family. Yeah, those are
What?
babies. A lot of them. Similar to Reign of Kings, development isn't all too clear as to when it actually started. You could assume that it began either a bit before or after the release of Reign of Kings. Most likely afterwards, using whatever money was made from Reign of Kings to work on this. But people wouldn't really know
Like, what is the point of this? He's saying they used the money from Reign of Kings to make something else. That is how products work, and that is how game development works. You make a product, release it, you kind of finish it, and you use that money to fund something else. I don't think that is the problem itself. I think it's more important to talk about that Reign of Kings probably shouldn't have been seen as a finished product. I don't think it's the problem they like funneled the, or like they spent the money on the next project. I think there's other fundamental issues that is more important that led to them doing that.
About it until Codehatch released a video on YouTube revealing alpha footage. This very cursed, near 7-minute long video looked kind of promising in all fairness, but you could see straight away that it had that trademark Codehatch feel to it. Just a bit more polished, or at least more graphically pleasing. You could see people starting bases,
Looks nice
fighting,
enough.
gaining power,
Oh.
and of course, the babies.
The
Like in this
babies,
trailer,
what
for
the
example,
fuck?
there's this fight scene going on, and then you just have this little fella crawling for his life. It's comedic.
No, Daddy, no! They're gonna get me! Oh, and most people don't even, like, they make kids immortal, and here you can just spawn kids. I don't know if they can fight or if they can die, but it looks fucking creepy.
If not concerning. However, unlike Reign of Kings, the video just didn't pick up as much attention. And it's very clear that people who don't know who Codehatch is probably saw the potential in this game, whereas people who knew the story behind Reign of Kings and Starforge probably had a good idea where this was heading. But it's also important to point out that around this time, Red Dead Redemption 2 just came out onto console, but not yet for PC. So there was a market for people wanting to experience a game in the Wild West. The Steam page at the time stated that the game would be released to early access on the 14th of December, and that's only a week or so after it was announced. But when the 14th came around, it was then pushed back 4 days to the 18th. And just a day before the 18th, Codehatch released an announcement saying that the game will now in fact be released sometime in January. We've decided to move Heat's launch to January to ensure we have time to test all our extensive features and content. We're sorry for the delay, but we've learnt that it's best to let you know closer to the date when the game is ready for release. You'd think by now that they would have learnt not to overpromise. And I've said it in a lot of my videos. If you overpromise, you're most likely going to underdeliver. And oh boy.
Yeah, but I get that. I don't disagree, but overpromising also increases your sales most of the time. And when you have money, you can kind of deliver what you promised, but if you don't have money, you don't get very far. So I get it. You can see No Man's Sky for the best example of overpromising and under-delivering, but then living up to the promises and actually exceeding them over time because they had money.
Did they under-deliver? Now, the delays already caused some concern, and there are people who are already fed up at this point, which at the point they announced this, the game wasn't even announced that long ago. But none of that would matter, because they did stick to their word, and they did release Heat in January, on the 30th to be exact. And when it was released, the Codehatch quality standard definitely shows. Many people were struggling to actually play this game with it running poorly on most machines. Server-side issues galore and so.
This is one of the reasons why I always insisted on our game developers to have relatively shitty computers. Because if you give a game developer the best computer in the world, the highest graphic cards, the best CPU, so on, so on, so on, so on, they will not notice the performance issues. But if you give them a shitty computer, they will notice the performance issues and they will optimize it as they develop, and they will not allow it to get too big. There are some pros and cons to it for sure, because development takes longer, but you will have a much more optimized product in the end.
On. Although again, it's expected with early access games in alpha, the PC requirements for this were pretty damn high for a lot of people. It is something that you should probably check before buying a game, especially if your PC isn't that good. But even people with very good specs suffered to even try it out. Although again, it's expected in early access and games in alpha, this was just not good enough. When you're releasing something that people will purchase in the hopes to actually play, they should at least expect that it's somewhat playable. But with Codehatch, it's...
Yeah, like, it's true. Like, you shouldn't release a product that doesn't work. It is also true, can be kind of hard to develop a 3D game because every fucking computer setup is different, and there might be some buggery between your CPU and your GPU or your RAM or something like that, and they don't gel as well, or you are a couple of drivers behind, and because of that, then this doesn't work and this is shit and so on. And you cannot test for all of that. That is impossible. Hi, honey. Thank you. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons from a developer's perspective why performance can be bad without it really being their fault, but something that needs to be fixed. And from a user perspective, it doesn't fucking matter. You paid money for a product, it should fucking work at least if you live up to the specs.
It's not really a question of how it begins. Instead, it's how these issues are addressed, and if they can be fixed at all. The mixed reviews on the positive side remind potential buyers that these issues are to be expected, and that the concept is appealing enough. Which in all fairness, I can agree with. Similar to Reign of Kings, the concept didn't seem to be the issue here, besides some of the really weird stuff that they added to the game, but...
Thank you, honey. Nee. Yeah, I'm not gonna brush my teeth while I'm streaming. I'm gonna do it afterwards.
I know.
Do you? Can I show? You know that face? I think you all know that face. You can probably all guess the face I just got from my wife there. You probably all received it from some woman in your life as well.
But that's a whole other topic. There's clearly a market for this type of survival, even if this game was far less popular than their previous one. However, the more negative reviews spoke of Codehatch specifically and their history both with Starforge and Reign of Kings, while also addressing the technical issues that came with this game. This just goes to show that a bad reputation unchecked is hard to shed. By now, with the videos already out about Codehatch's history, people were well aware of what they were.
This is some standard ass UI, like that is some basic bitch UI. It's, yeah, kind of fun. But again, if the game is fun, it doesn't fucking matter.
Getting into. To give credit where credit is due, Codehatch did get to work straight away trying to fix these bugs. In fact, they were so active with the updates that within a week they updated the game 4 times.
That is not necessarily a good thing. Because 4 releases just means 4 chances it can fuck up. And it costs time from a developer's perspective to update, and it means they're not planning as much, they're not preparing as much, they don't have a solid roadmap and so on. But if it's really grievous bugs, yes, you should update. But if you're not fixing grievous bugs or exploits or anything like that, don't fucking update. If you don't have, if you can wait.
Which is incredible, but not unexpected from Codehatch, because as we've seen before, they start off with a lot of steam, and then things eventually begin to drop. In February of 2018, they released a total of 8 updates. The majority.
This is all purely motivation driven and like fun with the new product. This is not long-term viable or anything like that. They should they should keep the founders in like a prototype team, and then have them as they finalize the prototype, bring in additional people to help build out the game and to stabilize it. Have the founders on through release to help use their energy, bug fixing and so on, and building out the team as they go. And then when the founders get bored and they get demotivated, then they should have a game director or someone who continues the game and who has been there from before release and who wants to continue the development of this game. And then they should step back and prototype a new game and rinse and repeat.
Majority of these updates were to fix performance issues and the ever-growing catalogue of bugs. Even worse is that these updates didn't seem to do too much to improve the experience. Many players are still being disconnected, struggling to run the game without crashing, or at anything above 10 FPS. Obviously this wasn't the issue for everybody, but there was clearly an issue when it came to accessibility. People would just refund the game once they see that it doesn't really work on their machine. With the
Looks
game not
relatively
doing all too
nice,
well,
like not
things
too bad
started
at all.
to slow down. For the rest of the year, 8 more
Is this
updates
lag
came
or is he
out.
walking
They did
now?
go ahead and add some more content. Fireworks and signs, animal farming,
Look.
spitting,
What?
and a very much needed single player mode called Homestead, because the player base at this point was already pretty damn small. And in January 2022, the dreaded "we've done what we wanted with the game and going to release it" post was made. It
Yeah.
came with a bunch of changes and updates, but one thing that stuck out to me the most wasn't the fact that this was probably going to be abandoned after a few months, but it was this statement here. Heat has become much more stable, optimized, and has received many new features, many of which were community suggestions. However, even with the optimizations we've gained, Heat is still a graphics-heavy game requiring a high-end.
The sentence he's reading is fine, but the next one, as it was designed and built from the ground up for high-end PCs due to its use of high-quality photo-scan graphics and always online nature. What? High-quality photo-scan graphics? What does that even mean? High quality photo scan graphics. So are they taking a photo of something, click, and then they're scanning that photo, and then they're just using that as a texture for things? Like, what the fuck? That makes no fucking sense. Sounds like the worst way of doing graphics.
PC. While this hurt the game's success in the review department, we have always tried our best to be upfront about it by listing the minimum recommended system specs on the Steam store page, and by doing our best to optimize as much as we could since release. In hindsight, we would not have gone so heavy on the graphics, as it really limited the number of players that could play. So they pretty much figured it out themselves. They had a very low player count at launch, and because they focused too much on the graphics, which to be honest look okay in the game, but they're nothing groundbreaking,
It looks okay, but this train, for example, is janky as fuck, and this Steam is weird. But yeah, it would have been better if it was smooth.
clearly set the bar of entry too high and resulted in a pretty bad start. Accessibility is extremely important for anything. When you're designing anything for people to play or use, the end user must always come first. At the end of the day, without them, nobody's going to use your product. It was great that they were honest about the issue, but it really should have been taken into account much earlier on. This was clearly one of their main requirements, or at least one of their main priorities or selling points. If the
Because it's driven by motivation. They've made low graphic games, now they wanted to make a high graphic game. Why are they doing that? Because they want to do it. There's not a business decision, there's not logic behind here. This is what they want to do, this is what they're motivated to do. And that's what they're gonna do. It's not great business decisions here. It's not clever people making these games. It's motivated people and it's relatively driven people. But there's not too much logic behind it.
game looked good, then surely more people will play it, while forgetting that the people who really enjoyed Reign of Kings didn't really care too much for the graphics. They were there for the experience. Now, in all fairness to Codehatch, they did stick around for a bit after release, and they added some new content, but it was too late. Their last update on the 23rd of June 2021 included gold panning and treasure maps. Although quickly fixed, the players that were around found out that the ability to actually pan for gold wasn't possible, because Codehatch forgot to add the pan in the crafting menu.
Well, shit happens, right? And if they had been a real studio with QA people and so on, this would have been picked up, or if they had just done QA themselves. But this could be a myriad of reasons. Maybe they had a variable they didn't enable. Maybe they overrode some merges in a branch. Maybe they were using like developer menus to get the items and not actually getting the items by playing the game. That happens quite a lot, that you make a developer menu and then you can just click in and you can spawn whatever you need. And if you do that, then sometimes you do forget that the player actually also need to be able to get these items and implement them where players need them. So the whole mechanic works and so on. The player just cannot do it because they don't have access to it. Fuck. It happens. I've seen it before.
But since then, nothing has really been heard from Codehatch regarding Heat. So far, we have 3 games released on Steam, one that was taken down because it was so bad and left many people with trust issues. The other had great potential regardless of its flaws, but then was eventually abandoned for a game about cowboys and babies.
Cowboy
But this,
babies.
believe it or not, is not the end, because Codehatch
What the
has
fuck
once
is this?
again come out with a new game that nobody asked for. This right here is Playform Human Dynamics, and it recently came out on Steam on the 27th of July this year. It's nothing like the other games. It's not a survival sim, no crafting or
It's
making
very
babies.
colorful.
It's simply just a parkour playground single-player physics game. And to be honest with you, it's not actually that bad. I can't fault it. It's simple and runs perfectly fine. You can slow down time while messing around with objects and running through courses, but I wouldn't really recommend it for the price it is at the moment. Simply due to the lack of content, there's only 3 courses and the rest of it is just make your own fun. And to be honest with you, I have no idea where they want to take this beyond what it is. But this is it, the latest game in the Codehatch saga. In a weird way, it's kind of poetic. The way your character moves is reminiscent of the other games before it. These spinny things are a callback to Starforge.
Why aren't I in bed? I forgot, man. Oh my fucking god, it's way too fucking late. I just wanted to finish this one. I just wanted to see this video, but I should have logged off an hour ago, man. It's all because of you, and we played Deadlock. It was the deadliest of the locks.
It feels like a Codehatch game, but without all the drama, at least for now. It's so unambitious in contrast to previous projects, and so simple that it seems like something they can actually work from and add to later down the line. But does it make up for the previous titles? No. To me, it looks like the final
We won most of the
coffin.
games, right?
I doubt
like
that
2 out of 3.
any significant funding that they could ever come back to where they were. And the reputation they've built over these years still continues to haunt them today, even in the update posts on this game that is unheard of. With barely any comments in the discussion, the mention of Starforge still comes up to this day. Throughout a decade, Codehatch has made many mistakes and has gained a pretty bad
67% win rate, unbeatable.
People say that these guys are
That's all you really need.
but I wouldn't even say that. With the Starforge incident, it seemed that way, but to me it just looked like incompetence, inexperience, and an inability to manage the situation or their community, resulting in things just to escalate and become worse. Although it wouldn't change much if they actually apologized and tried to make amends with their community and the people who funded this project from the start, then things might have been better. Reign of Kings was a great...
Nah, fuck that. They will not get anything from apologizing to the community and trying to make amends. Like, that's not gonna fix anything. The only thing that's actually gonna fix something is by creating a fun game, updating it, and delivering what people expect, or like at least enough for people to have a fun experience. And maybe hire in some people to keep the game going after the development, like after the founders get bored with it. That's the only thing that's gonna mend the broken fences here. No apology or anything like that is gonna do that. It's just gonna put fuel on the fire and reignite the flames of all the hurt people. It's not gonna do anything good for anyone.
Great concept. That was fun to play, but it was poorly developed from the start.
It was so
not
fucking
completely
fun.
terrible, but it led to a constant need to fix an endless spree of bugs and to battle with a relentless horde of hackers. I believe that if they stuck to it, continued innovating, and communicated better with their audience, then Starforge could have been somewhat forgiven, or at least forgotten, and Reign of Kings could be a game that people played even to this day. If
Reign
they
of
honestly
Kings
didn't want to do any more
would
of
have been the
game,
GOAT.
then passing on the rights to a team that would actually do something about it would have shown a bit more respect to their community. Heat gave us insight into their lack of awareness for accessibility. They had something that could have been
What
more,
the
but
fuck?
again, it was built on a rocky foundation. Even though it might have looked nice in some parts,
But why the fuck does she just pull out a pickaxe? Is she just walking around with a pickaxe in her dress? Jesus.
but honestly it still doesn't look
America
too great
is
at all.
wild.
The fact that a lot of people simply couldn't play it due to it requiring high specs largely contributed to the quick downfall of that game. One of the main issues that I've noticed with Codehatch is that they seem to cover up their ears and ignore the people that they've left behind, while trying to move forward as if nothing happened. I think this example right here speaks for itself. This is them on a job posting site after Starforge. Our first title, Starforge, was the top 5 title at launch on Steam. It was nominated for the IGF 2013 Technical Excellence Award. Are you kidding me? They clearly sweep their past mistakes under the rug and ignore those.
Everybody fucking do this. Like, I work with a company who they just keep winning awards that nobody has heard about and nobody is interested in, but they keep winning them and they keep going to these shows that nobody cares about so they can post on LinkedIn like, oh, we won this nonsense award. Wow. Amazing. Why don't you tell people that all your products are outsourced and you don't develop them yourselves? I'm just saying, but you take credit for how they're built. Yeah, I don't know. It feels weird.
Those that they've let down. Codehatch at nearly every step of the way seemed to shoot themselves in the foot. They had multiple chances to redeem themselves but failed at every corner and paid the price for it. And I can only hope that they make something of this new game.
What the fuck is this?
Because I can no
It's
longer
like a
refund
messed up
it.
Spider-Man.
Personally, I don't think Codehatch are the worst developers. It's clear that they know how to make a fun game. We've seen this with Reign of Kings.
It seems like Codehatch knows how to capture the essence of fun, and they like to make that little ball of fun, but they don't like to make all the supporting system around it that make that ball of fun continue to exist and continue to thrive and expand. That's not what they want. They are prototyping people. They want to make a prototype and have fun with that, and then they get bored and want to do something else. And some people are like that.
And even with this new game, although it's simple, it's actually still pretty fun. The issue comes down to execution and the choices being made. Game development itself is pretty damn hard, and especially for a small team. I just really hoped that they learnt from their mistakes a bit sooner.
What is
and
going
with
on
this
here?
new game, I honestly wish the best for it. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and a massive thanks to all my patrons. You guys are part of the reason as to why I'm now going full time. I'm also regularly streaming on Twitch, so you can follow me there. And if you want to get in touch, follow me on the Bird app. And I'd like to say a special thanks to all my Wicked Slayers and Cyber Wizards. The FBI, Chase R. Melvin, Negadan, Kex, Gibbles by the Dozen, Rare Alex, Alex Caprol, Finra, Linker, Alf Martin, Mark Nen, Basto, Mr. Pine, Spooky, Artistical, Rosalba, King Swing, Shadow Banisher,
Swing.
Distant
Oh my God.
Reality, and Anastasius. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one where I stand on somebody's desk. Yeah.
Right. Oh, fun video. Nice chat. Give it a like, guys. It was quite nice. Well done. Well put together. Codehatch reeks of the kind of people who fall in love with an idea only to drop it for the next fun concept when they realize how much effort it'll take. Yep. The 4 horsemen of the early access apocalypse: survival, crafting, open world, and of course, who can forget small dev team. Classic. Get me every time. Let's look up Codehatch. Like, can we find the size of the studio or anything? Codehatch Corp. View 3 employees. Okay. Company size 11 to 50. One of these two numbers are not true. 3 employees or 11 to 50. Cannot have both. How large is Codehatch? Or how many employees does Codehatch have? Let's see. Maybe company? This is also just the... Oh, it's such a good game. It really reminds me of my programming studies. Everybody looked like this, like some a semblance of this, or some adjacent looking. Revenue $3 million. Employees 4. Okay. I feel like that's very true. I feel like they're mainly those two founders, maybe one or two more. I want to see Reign of Kings. How are we doing, bro? 24-hour peak of 20. Oh my god. Oh my god. Yesterday at midnight there was 20 people online. Well, I guess it was today at midnight. Yeah. Now there's 13 people on. Okay. When we get a much bigger community, we're gonna try to launch some Reign of Kings. If we can get like 20, 30, 50 people on the server, that would be crazy nice. That's gonna be one of the goals. Was there anything else I wanted to do today? I think that's it. Yeah. One last thing. Nah, should we talk about earnings? Or should we wait that? Should we wait with that? Tomorrow is day 80 of streaming daily. So maybe we're gonna go through my earnings and see how rich I'm getting off Twitch and all the subscribers and ads. Let's do that. Cool. Then that's it. I will come back again tomorrow. Thank you all for tuning in and following and subscribing on YouTube and so on, and following on Twitch. It really means a lot. It helps out a lot. Thank you all for being here. It means a lot to me. See you again tomorrow. Bye.